Hi, I'm Rochelle Bradley, and this is my friend Beth Honeycutt.
Hi.
M. Honeycutt, if you go to search for her.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, my best advice would be to write as fast as you can. Get that first draft out, which is, one of the primary tenets of NaNoWRIMO. But I think it has a lot of value, at least it has for me, because it's allowed me to get that first draft out while I still have some creative steam. So, cage your inner editor. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Perfectionism is sort of the killer of creativity, at least for me. So, worry about making it really good. Later, give yourself permission to totally stink. It doesn't matter. Just get it out on paper, or screen. And then worry about going back and, tightening up and making it super great and beautiful later. But just get your idea out there. And that already puts you ahead of probably, 70% of the world that has this wonderful book idea in their head that they never flesh out into words ever.
Finish the book.
Yeah, finish the book. Even if it's crap and you hate it and you don't ever want to revisit it, you'll go back later and look at it after you've sort of decompressed and had some space from it, and you'll find that it is a lot better than you think it is, even the parts that you thought were terrible. And you'll find that readers later, they aren't going to be able to tell which parts you struggled over because you had to rewrite that scene 15 times to get it right, and which one flowed out of you in a beautiful, euphoric moment where it was all perfect the first time. They're not going to be able to tell the difference. And so just give yourself a break and just get it out. That's really the main thing, is just get it out. And then also, surround yourself with other writers, be in community. That's another great thing that NaNoWRIMO does very well, is it helps bring people together, and that accountability, having people ask you, have you met your word count today? For me is very motivating, because I don't want to have to, face up and be like, no, I have not done anything. So, that is very motivating for me. And having your word count out there on the website where everybody can check it and ridicule you if you are falling behind, and it doesn't mean that the words are good. I mean, you may have a spot where you can't think of anything to write and you're typing, the words to Old MacDonald.
I am mad. I am mad.
Or I am typing right now.
Yes.
I am hoping words will come. But those times when you get stuck, they'll happen less and less. And the good thing is if you're writing some on it every day, I have found it keeps it at the forefront of your mind. So when you're not actively writing, your brain is doing all this fuzzy magic in the background where it is working out problems for you. And then when you go to write that final scene where, somebody has to, find their way out of some killer's lair, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that really worked. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And it seems like magic, but it's really just because your brain's been working on it for, a month.
The characters are talking to you.
Yeah. I mean, there are things going on in there that you don't know about. And, so let that work its magic and be excited about the discovery part of it. I really enjoy that. Some people totally plot everything out, and that's totally valid too. But for me, a fun part is the discovery of it.
So you're a pantser?
I am definitely a pantser. I usually go in with the first name, or sometimes first and last, of my main two characters, and maybe a one-sentence summary of what the plot is, and sometimes a working title for the book, and that's it.
Wow, that's awesome.
So
that is a total pantser.
Yeah. So, but for me, part of it is it's like I'm telling myself a story. So, and that's what keeps me writing, is because it's really fun. I have to keep writing, so I want to find out what's going to happen. How are they going to get out of this situation? Who knows? I don't know. Something's going to happen. But, the other nice thing about being in community with other writers is that they really get it. If you suddenly burst out saying, I just committed my first murder and it was awesome. They are not going to call the police on you. And if you know, they're not going to, you know, feel as scared as some people looking at your search history might if, you know, you're Googling things like, can you kill someone by mixing this substance with this one? And I don't always write like horror and murder stories, but, you know, just for illustrative purposes, because I do write a lot of those. You know, it's nice to have writers.
I need a man's name from the 30s or something.
Yeah, it's nice to have writers in your life who will understand, you know, or, you know, if you get stuck on a plot point or you get stuck on a name or whatever. But whatever it is you're stuck on, just don't let it stop you from writing, because that's a trap I've fallen into a lot of times. Like, oh, I need to go research this. And then, you know, after falling down the rabbit trail of Wikipedia and then the 85 websites it leads me to, 3 days later. See, you're much more disciplined than I am. 3 days later, I know a lot about like esoteric topics, but I still have not written anything. So I try to just put in placeholders, you know.
I do that too. Like, I can't remember, like I need a name of an old lady.
Yes.
Old Biddy's name here.
Yes.
Or
Mr. X, you know. Or, you know,
so I know where to
really
search
cool
for.
method of killing someone. And then just keep going. Because, you know, if you stop to do all the research at that point, then sometimes it does derail you. And you don't have time to be derailed because you've got 50,000 words to do in 30 days. So you got to just keep going. So that's one thing that's nice about Nano. But it's also nice to have writers in your life who, and meet friends and have people that understand what you're going through and who can offer advice when you get stuck.
So where could they find your book? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I will be honest and say I'm somewhat reclusive. I do have accounts on all of the major platforms. On Facebook, I have an author page, Beth Honeycutt. And you'll see a picture of my book cover, What Dreams May Come, In Dreams, Book 1. In Dreams is the name of the trilogy. And I have author pages up on Twitter and Pinterest, and what else? What am I forgetting? I don't have Instagram yet. I do have an Amazon author page where you can follow me and, you know, set up a thread if you have questions or anything.
No. So what's next on your docket? You got the two.
Yeah. So I just recently finished writing the second book in the trilogy. But I do have to go back and, you know, do that whole polishing of crap. So making it actually good. So I was excited to just get it done.
Good. You can't, like she said, you can't polish nothing. You have to have something to polish in order to polish it.
Right. So I'm totally for writing crap. I'm not for publishing crap.
Right.
So, you know,
that's another advice. Always make sure that you don't publish crap.
Yes. Use an editor, proofreader, whatever it takes to get your work into really good shape. Because you can't ever make a first impression, and a lot of readers will be turned off. And you really don't want anything that's going to be a barrier to them understanding and enjoying your story. So make it as easy as possible so that the mechanics are all in the background and unnoticeable. And one other really great piece of writing advice that I just remembered is don't pave the river. A mentor told me this once, and it really was it's something I try to always keep in mind. So when you're writing, it's sort of like leaving breadcrumbs or little stones across a river. If you put too many of them, then there's no adventure. You're paving the river, you're telling the reader everything, and you're not letting them, add their imagination, you're not letting them understand things, come to their own conclusions. You're telling them too much.
That's a cool metaphor.
But if you don't put enough stones, people just fall in the river and drown. So you have to find a balance. My challenge was not paving the river because I don't trust myself to be able to communicate it without just expressly telling it.
Harder to leave the breadcrumbs for YA audience I mean, I know YA readers are usually adult. Let's face it. But, you know, there are a younger audience who read YA.
Yes.
So there's a difference in reading levels and comprehension and also topics.
Yeah, definitely. And my research indicates that that true, you know, young adults, they tend to prefer a little bit more explicit and a little bit more details, because they maybe don't have as broad of comprehension skills yet as an adult would have. So it's a fine line, you know, putting enough stones that the YA, you know, the young adult doesn't fall in the river and drown, but not so many that the adult readers get bored,
right?
You know, and that there's no room for their imagination to interact with the materials. So it is a fine balance. I don't claim that I have it perfected, but definitely
being aware
is great
is half the battle.
knowledge that it was a great piece of advice that I try very hard to remind myself so that I'm not over explaining things.
So is that the one that you got in church, is that YA as well?
Yeah, so far everything I've written about 6 or 7 novels, only one of which I've published so far, and they're all YA. Some are YA thrillers, some are YA horror, and then a couple are more of the YA sweet romance, the paranormal romance, which for those of you who are squeamish about such things, it doesn't have any horror in it, so don't worry that like a zombie is going to pop up anywhere or something, because it's really just it's more of a slice of life, just about coming of age story, and a really cool romance. But yeah, everything I've written has been for young adult. I'm very drawn to that genre and still read a lot of that. So
awesome.
I'm a kid at heart.
Yay! She's an awesome person. Read her book and review it.
Yeah, leave a review.
Reviews are like hugs for authors.
Yes, definitely. Beth M. Honeycutt on Amazon, What Dreams May Come, in Dreams, Book 1.
You have not published in paperback.
I haven't, no.
So you're just ebook only?
Yep, ebook only. I do hope to publish in paperback, but just haven't tackled that yet. You know, I'm still learning a lot about the self-publishing process, and that's one of the pieces that I haven't tackled yet. So definitely hope to, because that's a dream of mine, is to see an actual physical copy of my book that I can sign for somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you know any authors, that is like, you know, the best thing you can do is get a physical copy of their book and ask them to sign it.
And talk to them, because, you know, we're just normal people and we love to interact with readers, but with authors and everybody. And I mean, we're just like you. We have families and we have ups and downs, and we like certain jelly beans better than other ones, and you know, or pie, like in your book.
Oh, yeah. You will learn about so many kinds of pie.
I really want to go to that place.
Yeah, I had to take one for the team and do some in-depth research at a pie shop. So I had to drive
it's a really
to another
scene
state.
In her story. Oh, where? Indiana?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I drove
trip?
like 4 hours to find this pie shop, and then I had to try like 6 different kinds of pie while I was there. So, you know, it was a sacrifice I made for my art.
You could write that off. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was like, I actually had done the research for a short story I had written, and then I was like, this was way too long of a trip for just a short story. I've got to immortalize this in some other way. Oh, I loved that place. What was the name of it? See, I renamed it in my book so I wouldn't get sued or anything, and now I can't remember the name.
They probably would have liked it.
I think it was Mrs. Wick's Pies, I believe. It was in Indiana. It was near Winchester, Indiana.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
I seriously want to take a field trip now.
Yeah, they had sugar cream pie, which I had never heard of. And then
how good was it?
Like, it was good. Everything was good.
Was there a bad pie?
Yeah, no.
Dean Winchester. Oh, Winchester.
That was, you know, I was
he would totally like.
That was actually the short story that it was a piece of fan fiction about the Winchester boys.
But you wrote a lot of fan fiction. Is that how you
Yeah.
really got started on the publishing track?
Yeah, I published a bunch of supernatural fan fiction on fanfiction.net, and I had started writing some other fan fiction, but it really was the supernatural fan fiction I published, and then I got invited to submit some stories for some zines that were getting printed and sold at conventions and stuff, and just received such amazing feedback from such a supportive fan fiction community that it really encouraged me that, like, hey, people could really, like, it was amazing to see, you know, look at my little stats dashboard after I published that first short story and see that, like, people from, like, I don't know, I think it was like 65 different countries had read my story, and I was like,
Are they still up and going?
They are still up. I really enjoyed it, and just the incredible amount of support and encouragement from other authors and from people who leaving feedback is really what propelled me to finally make the leap into publishing my novel.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I forgot about that.
Fan fiction rocks.
Because CJ Beatty, she actually did an interview with me as well, and she mentioned that fanfiction.com place. Is it .com?
.net.
.net, my bad. That's how she got started. She started writing Twilight fan fiction, and and it's amazing that, you know, you don't think you have it in you to create this thing, and of course you have a subject that you like. You know, the Winchester brothers or Twilight people, and then you have this idea and you put it out there, and you're like, well, I know these other people want to read about it because there's this whole fandom of it, and they read it. The other people are like, write more because I'll read it, and it encourages you, and you're like, well, maybe I could be a little bolder and do this, or maybe I could do that, and it keeps you going and inspires you. I had never even heard of Supernatural when I met you, because I'm not a big TV person, and then after I found them, I binge watched them like crazy.
Yeah, and you know, my first short story for them, it was based on such a simple idea. It was called Parenting Your Gifted Child. When I talked to one of my friends in the fandom, and I was like, I just wrote this story. I don't think anybody's going to read it. It's got kind of a dumb title, and like nobody's going to care about parenting, and which it really was sort of about the idea of the boys realizing that Dean was really more of a parent to Sam than their own parents. But I didn't think anybody would be interested in it. I made her promise to read it so I would have at least one person read it and leave me feedback, because I was terrified of like the big zero, like no feedback, no reads. And I was completely blown away, because when I woke up the next morning, I had like many reviews by people I had never heard of, people in other countries, and like people wanting me to write more. And I was like, really? Okay, I will. And then like I published something else, and like people came back and read it again, and people subscribed to me, and I was like, really? Okay, you want me to write more things? I will. And so then it's like I became like a junkie for like feedback. Like there was a point like I was publishing a new chapter of a story every Sunday night, on a schedule, because I was like, I need reviews, and I need I love getting feedback and knowing that like people are actually reading my story.
Well, and so
it's such an amazing.
That's how you grow as a writer. But there's a way to do it, and there's a way to encourage. And yes. That's the one thing I love about NaNoWRIMO, is that you come along with people. It's a community, and we lift each other up. We get each other. But it's also outside of NaNoWRIMO, Ohio, there's a lot of writers and poets and all kinds of different people who write different genres, and there's a ton of people here, and finding your area that isn't just November or when the camps are, there's a bunch of groups at libraries, there's a bunch of Facebook groups, just having that network of people. Like in my local area, I like to go and just write at Panera, or of course when they're open, different restaurants or coffee shops or whatever, just to have community, because writing is kind of solitary.
And it's nice when I did NaNoWRIMO the first year, and it was crazy that I did this, but I had just lost my job, so I had some free time. I went to every single write-in that was scheduled because I was so terrified that I was not going to be able to finish. And I had, they tell you to kind of commit yourself by telling people you're doing it so that the specter of public failure will keep you writing.
It does motivate.
It is motivating. And, I lived in a region, the Dayton region, that has an extremely active group. And they had write-ins scheduled every single day, and I went to every one of them. And it was fantastic accountability, and it kept me writing. And, even though it's still a solitary activity, it's not like you're actually crafting words with the people sitting around you, but you still feel this sense of community to look around and see everybody else tapping away on a laptop at the same time, knowing that you're all working toward a common goal. It provides a lot of community, and that was really invaluable for me. It really helped push me toward that goal and helped me. I have been trying for years, probably for over a decade, to actually finish a novel. I was great at starting them. I just couldn't actually finish one. And that's what, I can never say enough good things about Nano, because it's the thing that helped me finally realize my dream of becoming an author. And I don't mean becoming a published author. I mean just finishing a novel was a dream in and of itself. It was an amazing feeling. And my first book, I like to say, came so easily compared to some of the later ones. I think especially that second one, that was so epically long. It was really hard, had multiple viewpoints and so many different locations and characters and action scenes. It was really a hard one to write, and I kept telling people, if last year, if it had been this hard, I never would have kept writing.
Oh, wow.
But my first one, thankfully, was easy enough. And then with the support and structure that Nano provided, it gets you really to push you through the finish line. And then once you feel that sense of euphoria of actually like finishing your novel and how amazing that feels, like that really gives you a lot of steam to do it again.
Well, yeah.
So
well,
I'm
once
glad
you do
my
it
first
once,
one was less painful.
you know you can do it again.
Right.
That's what it was for me. When I started writing 2008, I wrote a whole novel not knowing anything about anything. Went to the library to get a book on, and I was so overwhelmed by the cases that I just left with nothing. And I just started opened a Word document and wrote one chapter per Word document. And then I started in September when my son went to school, and by the mid-October I had a full novel completed. I didn't realize that wasn't normal. And then somebody told me about Nano that year, and I'm like, well, I already did it. I mean, it was 6 weeks versus 4 weeks, but I'm like, I wrote 80,000 words, which I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't like counting. I was just getting the thing out of my head. I had no, and I got it done in 6 weeks. So I'm like, well, I think I could do 50 in a month. And then back then, though, I had the inner editor I had to deal with, so I'm wrestling with that beast, and I was reading it and then writing every day, and you can't do that. It takes too long.
Yeah, and switching between some people can do it. Stephen King does it, he says, and I believe him. So he's obviously way out of my league because he can like edit one of his novels at the same time he's writing another one. I can't, because it's two different parts of your brain, and it's too hard to switch between. Like one side is, extremely logical, and the other side is very creative. So I need to just focus on one or the other and, power through, and while I still have momentum.
This has turned into a NaNoWRIMO pimp session.
But yeah, what happens with me is if it takes too long to write that first draft, then my brain figures out how the story is going to end, and then there's no impetus for me to keep writing because I already know what's going to happen. So I've got to
keep
do
ahead of
it
your brain?
fast. Yeah, I try to do it fast so that I'm discovering as I'm writing, because once the full story is laid out in my brain and I already know,
exciting.
It's not exciting. It's like doing homework over again that you've already done, and it's like boring because you already know everything that's going to happen. So I mean, it's like recopying a creative writing assignment.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess what would you call a planter, because I have a basic, like, kind of bullet point outline, not very detailed, because I'm like loosey goosey all the way through. My characters tend to take over, which I like, because that's exciting for me, and they're much better writers than I am. And they do stuff that I'm like, okay, whatever, let's go with it. But yeah, so I kind of know where I'm going. Where, of course, I write pretty much romance, so it's happily ever after. So we know that the couple are going to get together. So it's just how we get there and what obstacles. They usually do it themselves. I don't need to throw anything, really. They just stumble themselves and get to that end. And of course, I like to keep mine upbeat with puns and humor. But not knowing the end, that would be hard for me.
Well, I have a general idea of the end. Like, I'm a really firm believer in happy endings. I like to say, and I did not make this up, I don't know who said it originally, but I like to say, if it's not happy, it's not the end. I sort of refuse to admit that anything could end in a non-happy way. So, all of my books, I know that there's going to be a happy ending. And if there's a romance in them, which there usually is, that those two people are going to end up together and alive.
Well, that's good.
So it's not always like that in some books, but in mine, the main characters, the main love interest, are going to both be alive at the end, and they're going to be together as a couple. Well, so spoilers for anybody who hasn't read them. Sorry.
But that's when you say romance, that's the
expectation.
Yeah, I mean, happily ever afters or happily for nows are the expectation of a romance.
So I generally have that much figured out. Like, there's somebody killing off all these, or someone or something killing off all these kids at a party, but my two main characters are going to still be alive at the end somehow, and together they will have realized they love each other.
Well,
so
if your main characters were killed, it wouldn't be.
It's harder to have a romance.
They can come back from the dead, but
vampires, But yeah, I mean, so I have a general idea of the ending. It's just pretty broad. Happy ending, both alive, together romantically. The end.
I like laughter and love, because the world needs, I think, more of it. That's why I write what I write. You like to kill people?
I do.
And torture people.
I really am drawn to sort of creepy scenarios, and
although bullies, I'm pretty good with, they can get theirs.
But I don't think anybody dies in What Dreams May Come. So for those of you who are squeamish, again, like it's a gentle, sweet book, gentle, sweet romance. But you might want to check the backs of any other books of mine that you buy, because it's really very different than most of the other things I've written, which tend to be more like thrillers or people getting killed by monsters at a party in the woods.
What about the room one, the breakout room? Is that still a thing?
Oh, I haven't finished it yet.
There's Camp Nano.
Yeah, I should do that.
It's a really cool concept.
Yeah, so, and these are the ideas that I tend to get hooked on.
And she tells me about, and then I want to read them, and then she doesn't finish writing them.
But I'm getting a lot better about finishing.
Well, you should. That's good.
I haven't finished the breakout room one, though. But I do have one about, some college students who end up doing sort of community service over Christmas break at their college, and then they get snowed in on campus and somebody starts killing them all off. They play a game called Paranoia, which is sort of a mock murder game where you have to capture an item from somebody to show that you've symbolically taken their life, and the person who has killed the most people by the end wins, but then somebody starts taking the game too far and really kills people off. So in really interesting ways too, like a nail file through the eye.
Ew.
So,
I might not sleep
so, and I've got a couple with, supernatural creatures in them. So, yeah.
Look for more coming soon. See, now you have motivation.
Yes, now I have motivation. I've got to get to work editing some things.
I'm going to put this up in a few weeks, so you've got a few weeks to get some things done.
No pressure. No pressure at all. Just, edit 6 books in 2 weeks. Good job.
But if you do like 100,000 words in, a month, then, hey.
Anything's possible.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, that's the main message, right? Anything is possible. Don't let anybody tell you that what you have to say isn't important. There is somebody out there that needs to hear what you have to say. You have a message that you were given for a reason, and there's somebody who needs to hear it. And you're the only one who can say it in quite the way that you can.
Yeah, everybody has a story, and nobody can tell your story but you.
Right.
That's
and if you don't tell it,
who's going to tell it?
Right.
Nobody.
Something I saw really motivating was, the idea of, if you don't tell your story, it's going to go to the grave with you. And then, think of all the poems or songs or, works of art, books we would never have had, if the people had never.
Wow. It's kind of trippy if you think about it.
Yeah. Because there's nobody else that can do it. You're the only one who can tell your story in quite the way that it's been given to you. So, you have to step up and do it, because that story was given to you for a reason. There's something in it somebody needs to hear.
So write your story, but finish it.
Yes.
Only you can write your story. Nobody else can. Join community, get encouragement, and
feel free to write crap.
Yes. Give yourself permission to just let it all out. And then, once it's done, go back or set it aside for a few weeks, maybe even a month, and then go back and look at it, and you'll be like, oh, I wrote this. This is kind of good.
You will be pleasantly surprised. I guarantee it. I am constantly. I'm like, oh, that was so awful. I know I did an awful job. I struggled so much. And then I go back 3 months later and I read it and I'm like, really? That was a lot better than I thought it was.
It's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, it's never as bad as you think.
But with NaNoWRIMO, you're writing so fast, sometimes your brain is skipping. Like your hands are going at, your brain is going faster than your hands can keep up. And you lose words. But you know what you want to say. And then, it's just, you got to get it out. And you're just trying so hard. When you go back, your story is good. It's always a good story. But the writing might not be perfect. So if you capture the story down, you can always make the writing better.
Yep. And there's no shame in that. Every author has to edit and proofread and, sometimes use an outside editor or proofreader or, everybody has to revise. Nobody has pure gold on the first try, not even Stephen King. So everybody needs to
You
revise.
never know. You have to keep writing, because if you don't, for example, my first Fortuna story is not the first story I wrote for Nano, but it's the first book I published. But 3/4 of the way through that story, one of my favorite characters emerged, Desire Hartman. And she was a hoot. Old lady, dirty mind, dirty behavior. She's just a fun lady. And I had to go back, and when I did rewrites, I wrote her into the beginning of the story because she was a valuable character. And of course, if you ask the people who read my writing, she's one of the favorites because, she has no filter, and she's a little old lady who can get away with stuff, and she's hilarious. I mean, life goals. But if you don't write the story, if you don't continue and finish it, you don't know how you might go back and improve when you do your rewrites.
There are things you'll learn later in the story that you can put little clues in early on or
Your
foreshadowing.
little stepping stone and breadcrumbs.
Right, your little breadcrumbs to help the reader get to where you want them to get. But if you don't ever finish the story, you're never going to learn the stuff you need to know to be able to help your reader out.
So I'm going to say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And definitely, if you check out my book, drop me a line or especially leave a review, because I love to hear what readers think, and it definitely is a big part of what motivates me to keep writing.
Yay. Well, thank you, Beth. This is Beth M. Honeycutt. There's other Beths out there. And I'm Rochelle Bradley, and we are signing off. Have a good night. Have a good day.
Stay safe.
That's right. And if you're a writer and you're just starting, get that thing out of your head. You can
Keep
do
writing.
it. Just keep writing. Just keep writing. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Beth. Please comment below what was your favorite writing advice. And be sure, if you haven't seen it yet, to watch her part 1. I've interviewed several other authors and will be interviewing more. If you're interested in being interviewed, please contact me on Facebook Messenger or leave a comment below. Thank you, and please like and subscribe if you want me to continue making more interview videos.